Hello! I thought I would do this photo editing with Corel Aftershot Pro with a little bit of one-on-one. Got a little face cam going, figured I'd try it out. Sort of pretend like I'm doing a live stream, but I'm not. I don't know if it's a vlog or what you call this, but we will just get going. So what I've done is I went and photographed some stuff near a dog park. Our family went. They took the dog walking. I went off the other way and found some twisted, gnarly trees, some little forested areas, and some grasses, and just did some photography. I was essentially trying out a new lens. I have picked up this 12 to 40, which is full frame would be 24 to 80 for my Pen F. I sold my 12 to 100 and my EM1 Mark II because, as fantastic a kit as those are, and they are amazing, that camera is amazing and that lens was fabulous, it was just a bit big. And since I'm no longer doing the hiking and straight up, landscape photography in that traditional way, I'm doing much more of it via my motorcycle. That kit was just a bit big. It didn't fit real well in the tank bag, and I was always concerned with that and other stuff in there. So I picked up a 12 to 40 and figured I'd go out and give it a try. So that's what I did. Lighting was overcast, which was good, so it wasn't too harsh in terms of bright spots, but there was the lighting was subtle, let's put it that way. I won't call it flat. I don't think I would call it flat, but it definitely didn't have a bunch of direction to it. So, you get what you get, and we'll just take a look at some stuff, and we'll play around with some editing techniques. See how it goes. So let me switch the view to this, and we'll just start. Actually, let me filter this. I already flagged some to keep this from looking at every photo. So this was the first thing that I saw, and I walked in. This is just me to sort of demonstrate. I tend to react and then refine. So I reacted to this and really like the way this looks, but I'm not real happy with this. I mean, this is out of focus, so it's not horrible in terms of being a distraction, but I just decided that it'd be better to focus on the detail of this instead of trying to make a scene out of it, if that makes sense. So what I did was I rotated myself around the side and found this angle was a bit better. And then I played with standing kind of up above it a little bit, and that gave me some separation here, and then played with some lower angles and then some tighter, like this one here is nice and tight, and it's definitely more about the details here, and then this one as well, very similar, but just a little bit further out. You can notice the distance if you look right here. See that little notch right there, and then that same notch is right here. So we got a little more to play with here. So let's work on this image a little bit. Now on my camera, when I'm out shooting, I typically leave it at 16:9, just because most of my shooting is done for computer wallpaper, and my monitors are 16:9, so it's kind of nice having them set up so that I can look at the images. But if you can't see it, but around my room, around the house, I've got some prints that were made and framed, and those tend to be 4x5s. They're like 11x14, some 8x10s here and there, and a couple of square. So I do crop them differently if I'm going to be printing them. And that's what's nice about shooting raw. Your camera will say 16:9. You see the crop, in the camera, so you know how to frame it. But then when you get back and you look at the raw files, you've got the full everything that your camera gives you. So in my case, it's 4x3 is the main setup, and that's what we're looking at here. Now I could just go enable crop. I tend to crop first because that helps me decide about dynamic range of the image and other aspects, because if you have like the sky in here, that might throw your histogram off if really what you're going to end up doing is just editing an image closer to this. And so I've cropped it 69, and then I've got a true histogram of this, so I can then play around. And just as a side note, if I'm not talking about everything I'm doing, I'm not going to narrate 100% of it. I assume you know how to do some basic editing stuff. Obviously, you can pause and rewind. But if there's something I do that you're not sure about, or if you think, oh, well, maybe you should have done this other thing instead, I'd love a comment below and just time code it. So, 5:25 will give the time code if you're not familiar with how YouTube works. And that way it's a link directly to that timestamp, and then I can look exactly what you were thinking when you made the comment. Anyway, so I'm going to raise my exposure because that's just what I always do. For some reason, sometimes I think of it as a defect. I need to be okay with images being not fully bright and fully dark. I grew up in the zone system of black and white days, and they always talked about trying to have things stretched out all the way. But I tend to start there, and I can always pull back from there. And then let's do a little bit of an S-curve. So we're going to raise that up, and you'll notice that this is getting really in the highlights, and this is all very, very light. And when you do an S-curve, there's a counter force. So I lifted this. Because it's pivoting around this here, it automatically makes this a little darker, which normally, I love it, works great, sort of natural, looks good to me. But if you want the darker portions to be less dark, you just have to raise your curve up a little bit there. The other option is to use a plugin. I think I talked about this in a previous video. The Bez plugin has the tone curve via slider, which is super handy for making fine-tune adjustments just for certain aspects of it. But I'm going to drag this down a touch because I want this to be more of a enrich the golden colors. That is not too shabby. I like that a lot. And I'm going to apply a little bit of sharpening, but I don't want to do all the grasses. I like the fact that the grasses are a little bit less directly sharp. That's not going to work. Heal. What the heck you doing there, dude? Adjust. Thank you. And I always like to lower this down. So what I'm doing is essentially masking off the area. I'll leave it on so you can see it. And then any adjustments that I make will be applied to the areas that are masked off and not to the areas that aren't. One of the, most of the modern photo editing softwares do some variation of this, which is super important because you typically doing just global changes. You might as well just take the picture, catch it in camera, and then be done, and don't do any editing at all, other than say cropping or whatever. If you're looking to sort of develop your image and create the final product based on the vision, or not even not necessarily the vision of what you saw while you were there, that's tends to be a good way to start. Is that this is the image as I saw it. I want to reproduce that, so I want to make the adjustments so that it looks how I remember it. Your memory will always be flawed, of course. So it's more about how you felt and what you saw, and from there you can then pull and push the image into the vision that you have for it. If you want to make higher contrast or lower contrast, maybe you had a graduating filter and darken the sky, all that kind of stuff. And typically, like I said, those are all local adjustments. So I am going to go here to clarity mode, and I think I covered this in another video, that when you're doing a masked layer, it just defaults to all the zeros here. So you need to then just drag it up to where you want it to be. And I recommend that you play with these things and see what a lot does, what a little does, what the radius and edge do. Again, and you'll probably make these changes based on every single image, every single adjustment you're doing, because it's not a stamp done. If you're doing something where you're just applying the exact same preset to everything, that's okay if you're creating that kind of a look for yourself. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. But for me, I'm not going to apply the same amount of sharpening to every image I ever shoot, because those things vary based on my aperture, where precisely I was focusing. In this case, I was using my lens at 2.8. So I bet you, even a little bit up here, it's less sharp than where I was probably focusing down here. And, it's not that far, but, with a 2.8, then there's a bit of a difference there. So I don't want to just apply the same amount no matter what. Oh, I do want the heel, though. I'm going to just do this. Come on, I don't need two of them. You're making me look dumb here, computer. It's totally not my fault. Okay, that's not going to work. I need to shrink and then feather so it doesn't look so round. One of the, obviously the key is to try to not make it look too much like a direct stamp. That's not bad. It's one of those things too where if you don't tell someone, if you're not watching you do it, they probably won't even notice. It's not too bad. I'm trying to decide if I want to make this lighter or not here. I think that looks okay. And let's just see what the vignette looks like. Oh. So let's see. You might notice on the vignette tool that if you, with the adjust to crop, that's the default. You'll notice that it only applied to the left side here. It's because I've already cropped the image. If I took the crop off and click it, it applies to everything. And now, theoretically, hopefully this doesn't make me look like an idiot, if I enable crop, it should readjust. You see it darkens a little bit up here. So if we do it the other way around, let's go back. Let's be thorough here. So I'm going to take this off. I'm now going to crop and then apply it. It's going to be heavier on the sides. So if you look at if I hit preview here, it's hard to see, but see the circle? This is the center of it. So theoretically, it's supposed to move and adjust to the crop. I get varying degrees of that working. So I tend to hit the vignette and then just move it anyway. And that can be done via the Y and X axes here, and then obviously the different size adjustments. Now, to be honest, I don't hate that, but I am going to move it just a little bit up and then a little bit over. Now, I can also just uncheck this and it will move it over sort of where it thinks. So if I left these in where they're defaulted to and I hit this, it's just going to center it. And that's okay too. And then you can just move it from there. So I can scooch that down. And then the other adjustment you can do is what they call the ratio. And so in this case, I've got my standard round shape. There are a few different shapes you can play with. And then the ratio can stretch it differently. So in this case, because I'm running a 16:9 crop, I want to have it kind of stretched out to match that a little bit. And I don't need to see the preview anymore. That's not bad. It's pretty subtle. I like that. I can make this a little darker, maybe just too much there. Go a little more. And then we'll take the transition and pull it back. So yeah, so here I think I might want to make this just a little bit lighter. So I'm going to do a new adjustment layer. Run this down. I don't want the whole thing to be evenly lit up. I'm really doing a little bit more on the surface where the light would be coming down. And so what I don't do is typically I won't just grab the exposure and run it up. You can, and it's not horrible to do that, but it does tend to just raise all the values up. So things that are darker and lighter in that same area are all going to be raised up, right? What I like to do is use local adjustment, but then use like a same, either an S curve or a tone curve, because I don't mind having a bit of variation between the light and the dark. again, that looks a little more natural. If everything in your scene is just raised up and is brighter, it just looks like it's brighter. If you have the brighter parts a little brighter and the darker parts a little bit darker, it kind of has that more of a, excuse me if I bumped the mic there, it has a little bit more of a dimension to it, I find. And then what I can do, because I can almost never really keep track, I have to check it on and off to really get a feel for it. It's like going to the eye doctor. Better or worse? Better or worse? And then you can also grab your bright point and bring it over a bit. Yeah, that works. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to do this and really if I was going to be printing something off, I'd probably spend even a little bit more time messing with it. I don't want to get too fixated on it, but that's not too bad. Love to hear what you have to say about it. Hit me up in the comments below. All right, so let's move on. See what else we got here. This guy's one of my favorite trees. It's still there. As you can see, it's it's been busted off. I've done photos of this before, and I really love this guy. Excuse me. I do wonder though. This image isn't quite. I would have seen it, like I said, 16:9. So let me crop that. This is probably how it looked in the camera, which makes a little more sense. That looks more like what I would have photographed. It's not bad. I'm a little bit bummed that I didn't raise the camera up and shoot down to try to get more separation there. You know, sometimes what I'll do is, here, watch, this is me just doing a real rough test. This is not obviously my attempt of making a finished version of this. This will just help me see if it even works at all. So you can kind of see that, you know, I suppose, and then if I were to do this yeah, I don't know. I could probably play with a bit more and get some other grasses in there and build together my own little tuft of grass so it looks like it's at the bottom. You know, kind of like we have the tufts here and here. I'm not sure the image is strong enough for that overall. I mean, it's pretty good. I'll spend just a few moments. Okay, so I know I've mentioned this in a previous video. I don't know if you just noticed what I did. So I raised the exposure and nothing changed. Histogram didn't move. You want to know why? Because I'm on the heel layer. So go back to your main layer, make your adjustment. I do that on a regular basis. If you do find yourself editing everything the same way, like a base setting all the time, like you always do an S-curve and you always, you know, adjust the levels over, or you always do this or that or the other, make yourself a preset. I'll probably create a video for that. If you don't know how, or if you're interested, let me know. Give me the comment. But they're easy to create, and you can just make versions of them. The trick is to try to keep track of which ones you've done and why you did them, because it's easy to do, like, just call those something stupid and then not know why you created the thing. So if it's going to be your base pre-edit, you know, you can name it something like pre-edit, that kind of thing. Let's go. Nope. Here. So just the tweaky tweaks. It's not bad. I mean, it's not a horrible scene. I do want to fix this though. I'm not sure what to do with it. I think I will do it over. Try to create something a little bit more non-straight edge shaped. Yeah, it's all right. Like I said, for something like what we're doing here, it's just fine. Basically trying to create a bit of more of a natural look to it. And you can, like I said, if it's yeah, it kind of works okay. You know, it's one of those things that you can sort of become a painter at that point. You start to pick, I'm going to clone this in and clone this in and piece together, you know, building blocks and jam it up that way. Works pretty good. Yeah, that's all right. And then go back to the main layer, because I remember this time. And then I'll go straight to the adjust to crop. And the key here is I don't know if I want to darken this. And for me, vignetting is kind of a default, which is, you know, good and bad. It's just part of the look, and it comes from the days of using different lenses. You know, when you used in the good old days with a bunch of manual lenses, you'd get vignetting is pretty common around the edges, and that's how I grew up with photography. Things weren't clinically perfect all the time. There's a lot of variance based on the gear you used and stuff, and so I'm kind of used to it. Let's pop it off, back on. And then let's ratio that out a little bit. Yeah, it's subtle, it works. And the whole point of the vignetting is just to kind of draw your eye into the subject, into the scene a little bit. So you have to decide if it's helping or hurting. Sometimes it can look weird. I'm still not sold on this scene. Because these grasses are so light, adding the vignetting is a bit obvious, stark. Not sure what's the right word. Whereas on some scenes, you know, it's already kind of got darker elements to it, and so adding a vignette doesn't distract. It just, you know, it seems natural. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think on this one I want the vignette like I did in the previous one. I mean, I can always go bananas with the ratio and really get it out like that. That's better. It's darkening around here, which is okay, I think. Transition a little bit here. I don't know. What do you guys think? Comment below. All right. That works. That's all right. We're just doing some quick stuff. Now, I could also try to sharpen this or not, but in this case, I think I'm okay with it the way that it is. Part of me is thinking it'd be nice to actually do something different. I'm trying to remember where I have it. So this is the Z Soften plugin, which if you haven't played with it, I recommend farting around with the Orton effect. I don't recommend it becoming a default. I don't like anything that's just straight up default. But it can add a nice effect to some scenes, so it's worth playing with and deciding if you like it or not, you know, and where to use it or not, right? Again, don't just apply anything everywhere. So what this does, this is essentially softening the scene, and it creates. The concept is it to be a more ethereal look. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that so much on this one. So, all right, moving on. So this scene I kind of liked. Same tree, other side, and you can see that it's like it's touching. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know, poignant. If you want to read too much into your story, it's easy to do. What I'm going to do here is apply the same adjustments to this, just to get it sort of a quick It's like a preset, but I didn't create an actual preset. So what I'm going to do is hit copy, Control C, go to my new image, Control V. Do that. Why aren't we working? Okay, my computer is frozen. Frozen. My computer is thinking. Hold, please. Hey, there it is. So the way that works is it's essentially the same as doing the copy image settings, Control C, and then pasting them. So the adjustments get applied, and if the scene is different based on, say, crop or something, or clone situation, you may have to go in and play with the editing a bit. Otherwise, you end up with a situation where you've got something off on the side and you didn't expect it to be there. So I'm going to go into my adjustments panel, and I probably don't need the heel because the same object isn't in this scene as in the previous scene, right? And let's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a nice enough scene. I don't know if it's anything to write home about. I like it. It's nice enough. Yeah. That's just another version of it. Let us go here. So this one, when I was shooting it, again, playing with my new lens at 2.8 or whatever, trying to hit an element nearby. I love this claw and this curve. I mean, how cool is that? And then I had this second element, which was like following a similar curve to it, and then the elements into the future. I couldn't get it the way I wanted it based on what was in the scene. So I didn't take a bunch of these to try to get to it. But it's kind of just an interesting shape. This one here probably I would end up doing as a detail study maybe of just this guy. And it's easy to just do detail stuff all the time. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's you want more than that. You want more of a full scene. But it's just something interesting. And it's real easy to fart around just a little bit and be able to then ascertain whether or not it's worth exploring more detail. Like I really want to spend my time editing this image, or if you sort of go, it's not really worth it to me. It's not what I wanted. Oops, let's do this guy. Let's go up. Something like that. And then in this case, you can also just throw on a bit of clarity. And this, I just didn't even bother with if I'm going to separate the grass or not. So you can quickly, just in a few clicks, and again, a preset, if you were to set up a preset that had the curve that you generally like, maybe the blacks that you generally like, maybe the saturation or the contrast or the sharpening or whatever, you save all that in a preset, and then you can just apply it and go, oh yeah, okay, that's pretty good. But I definitely encourage you to don't just make all your photos be a preset and do nothing, although that can be a nice way to create a body of work that all has a similar look to it. All right, so let's see. We've got this leaf, which I thought was interesting, but it's now that I'm back here, I'm like, why? What's so great about it? I mean, I suppose if it was better color, it might be a cooler scene. And then I have a couple of these guys, which I liked. I liked the path kind of curving through these trees. The key here, and I was unsure what I wanted to do, was what my overall crop was going to be. Because my camera, like I said, was 16:9, it's like real narrow, which is not how I shoot these kinds of scenes. Normally I would either do 4:3 square or 4:5. And then it just becomes a matter of lining up the elements that you might want. definitely need to get rid of this stuff. Would have to clone that stuff out. Let us crank the exposure a little bit. This one becomes a tough one because the softness of a less contrasty scene is quite nice, but it becomes a matter when you have a lack of directional light, you start to struggle with separation, right? So if I jack this all the way down, you've now got a lot of separation. You can see some details and the colors pop out and you go, wow. You can obviously lower the saturation a bit or lower the vibrance. But oftentimes just cranking contrast and or saturation is what I call smearing lipstick on the pig. You have to really determine if the image is any good at all on its own, because otherwise you're just, you know, I mean, unless you're practicing, then you're just, you might as well fart around with everything and just try stuff. You know, go soft, low contrast, go high contrast. Yeah, and then throw a square crop in here. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see what other ones we've got here. I took a couple, at least another one. There's still, I don't know, there's something here. Again, maybe a sunrise light or something. Let's just check 8x10. Let's try this one, the horizontal. I kind of liked this here. And then I'll also go 69 again, because that's what I was shooting that day. At least that's what I had in mind. The key for me here is this. Do I want to show this, or do I want to crop it off? And when I was in the field, I was very cognizant of this gap and wanted to have that there. So I'm going to start there, showing this whole tree. But if I do this, just so you can see it, you can kind of see the difference if I cut it off, the difference it makes. And it's not a major difference in the image. It's not as if it's somehow upside down suddenly. But those are the little subtleties right along the edges that can make a difference in sort of the context of the image. You know, a row of trees that are cropped off where you can't see anything where the trees, you know, live is a different shot than if you're showing the full tree, you know, where it goes into the ground or whatever. And so it just comes down to the play there. I could do a custom crop and even have more showing there, but I don't see the need for that. What I am gonna try one of my presets just to see. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's all right. Like I said, I don't think I would print it off and hang it on my wall. But I do like some of these details in here. I mean, this this is one of my favorite times of year. Not that I'm into dead things like some goth person, but I don't need things to be vibrant in color. I like the browns. I like tans and browns, and what I would think of as natural. I love natural looking scenes. Sometimes we got too much color going on, even though those are the colors maybe in a fall scene. They just come across to me as, I don't want to insult anybody. So if you're into fall shooting and that's your thing, this isn't an attack. But I often, at least for the work, maybe it's just because of how I've approached it, and I'm absolutely sure that's what it is. It feels contrived to me. Like everything's got the fall colors and you got the leaves in the thing, and it's just not quite my thing. And maybe it's because I stink at it, so it's very possible that my brain has told me that I don't like it because I'm not good at it. And it's 100% a possibility. I know how psychology works, at least to that extent. But anyway, how about you guys? Are you fall color? You stay away from fall colors? Spring? Let me know. Comment below. It's not bad. It's maybe a little light actually. Maybe if I bring the exposure down. kind of have it. And then let's jack this a little bit. Yeah. I can easily see this in like a morning time. Some light coming in, because the sun would rise from over here, and it would so the light coming in here. Imagine this kind of, these sides of the trees and the, you know. I can kind of, you know, man, sorry. You can kind of play with it using the curve. This is, again, this is a tone curve, and but you're given the precision that you're not. It's a lot harder to achieve. Wow, it's tough. Better, worse, better, worse. Yeah, it's all right. All right, we're not going to keep going on and on and on. Let me know. Again, if you reference any of the images that you like, just time code it wherever it is in the video. Just think, hey, this sucks, or this is great, or I would have cropped it this way. Okay, so the last image was a similar kind of a scene overall, meaning just some trees in a lane. But I liked how the different curves and then the colors in the background. I was first drawn to it because these were glowing a bit more than the sun kind of went away, and I was on my way back to the car. My wife had called and said, hey, we're back to the car, we need the keys. So I wasn't going to spend a bunch of time waiting for the sun to pop back out. Let's crop. This is a question. Do I leave in this spot here? Because it's a bit of an interesting element. Or do I crop it up like that? And is that okay? Is that enough? You know, or should I just leave it 4x3? Oh, we clicked off the thing completely. I typically don't do 4x3. In part because of my expectation of the matting and the frames that you buy, depending on, like, I'm pointing around my room, like you can see. You know, if you go buy a frame, you know, what is the crop that's going to be needed to fit, right? And so like 11x14 is real close to your 4x5, so you can kind of get away with it either way that way. But 4x3 is quite a bit different, quite a bit taller. So it depends on what frames you got going on, what you're dealing with in terms of matting. I know guys who will do a bunch of custom stuff. I mean, the videos I've seen of guys talking about it. And I just typically am not interested in spending a bunch of money getting my stuff framed. And, you know, maybe that's a bit of a failing on my part. See, I love that clone tool. But it's just, I'd rather just get something like at Michael's that's, you know, on a buy three, get one free closeout kind of thing, and have more images up than have one that I spent $200 on, you know what I mean? Out of all the images, this is definitely the most piggy one. I think I need that to be glowy. Let me throw a bit of a curve on here. It's not too horrible. That's a bit dark. Let's go here and yeah, I don't know. Not my favorite. Can you tell? Part of it, I think, is just, I don't know, this is so dark compared to the other trees. And I guess, I mean, it's already a darker, it's covered in this kind of dead, at this point of the year, it's a bit of a dead, you know, moss. I think it's more covered than these, and so it's darker. Which, you know, maybe black and white would work. I definitely don't mind. Ugh, this just doesn't work. But that's kind of interesting. If you're not sure what I did there, I double clicked it on the label and it pops it back to the default. Oh, in this case, obviously 0. I don't know. This is not my favorite. I am not going to keep banging on about that one. Anyway, I think that's all I got for this video. This is me doing some Corel Aftershot Pro 3 photo editing. Give me your comments. Let me know, like I said, which ones you like, what kinds of techniques you use, if you have any presets that you think work great, how you do it, what kind of camera equipment you use. I'd love to hear about that kind of stuff too. I'm not a total gear acquisition guy. I tend to, pare my kit down to what I'm just using right now. So I sell stuff and then buy stuff, and typically do my best to use my gear sales to acquire the new gear. I try to keep the money evened out. As opposed to spending thousands of dollars on kit every year, which is real easy to do. Anyway, I think that's all I got. So talk to you later.